super lucky disaster man. Chapter 33, Uninvited Guest. Not an ability user. Mori Ogai looked at the files of documents back and forth, trying to analyze it from the perspective of a non-ability user, but found that the analysis didn't hold up. In the end, Mori Ogai could only stop the car in disbelief, and then had someone call Dazai Osamu, who was in the other vehicle. Although Dazai Osamu didn't have a designated seat in the boss's car as naturally as Ozaki Koyo, he still frequently hitched a ride with the boss, and when he sat down, he did so quite casually. Boss. As an ability user, Elise immediately moved far away, hiding next to Ozaki Koyo. Dazai Osamu acted like he didn't notice at all. Dazai-kun. Mori Ogai, trembling, held the documents in his hand. You probably know why I called you over, right? Dazai Osamu grinned, I know. So tell me how you determined that the other party doesn't have any abilities. Mori Ogai put down the documents in his hand. This latest intelligence is about the incident when you met Komai de Nagi-to at the Port Mafia warehouse. What happened afterward? Dazai Osamu didn't hide anything and recounted how he ensured the effectiveness of the ability by holding hands with Komai de Nagi-to and what transpired along the way. Mori Ogai confirmed, when you were about to get out of the bus, someone suddenly fell, and their gun fell out as well. Yes. And then, just because of that fall, the backpack bomb was triggered? That's right. Boss Mori, you might want to check your brain if you feel like your memory is weakening. Mori Ogai ignored what Dazai Osamu said and continued confirming, then with one sudden break, the bomb detonator just happened to fly into Komai-de-kun's hands. Has your memory really deteriorated that much? I really should have brought a recorder. Mori Ogai, upon hearing the development of the plot, felt utterly confused, thinking he might have misunderstood something. However, after confirming it with just a couple of sentences, he immediately understood. There was no issue with his understanding, the issue lay with Komai de Nagi-to. Mori Ogai, with a headache, held his forehead. At this moment, are you sure you're not letting go of his hand? That's right, but later on, because someone wanted to use force to threaten us, Komai-de-kun looked like someone who wouldn't fight at all, so I had to step in. Dazai Osamu sighed, you know my skill level in martial arts, and it was a bit troublesome with someone holding my hand. That said, I felt it was enough confirmation, so I loosened my hold at that point. Mori Ogai pondered for a moment, still feeling somewhat dissatisfied. Although the Port Mafia already has a few ability users, compared to those ability organizations from foreign countries, it's basically nothing. Encountering an ability user whose strength is unclear is rare, and it seems like this person has no issues with the Port Mafia. If a misunderstanding causes a missed opportunity, wouldn't that be such a pity? Logically speaking, Dazai Osamu is currently the only known person who can nullify abilities, and whether the other party has an ability or not completely depends on his words. Although the chances are slim, if Dazai Osamu wanted to make Komai de Nagi-to say something, twisting the truth isn't impossible. Mori Ogai tried saying, do you want to confirm it again? After all, according to Dazai Osamu's way of speaking, just confirming like that for a moment didn't seem convincing enough, and it was also giving him a chance to correct his own conclusion. Dazai Osamu retorted, boss, do I look like I'm really that free? Confirming this is truly a waste of time. Mori Ogai. It does seem like he's been quite busy recently. He threw the work to Dazai Osamu, fully understanding that most of it couldn't be handed off to anyone else and only Dazai himself could do it. It was said that Dazai had even been sleeping directly in the office for the past few days. However, the superiors wouldn't consider this. What Mori Ogai thought was, why did all these work have to come at such a time? It would have been better if the work had been arranged when Dazai wanted to die from several sleepless days in a row. Because Dazai Osamu was busy, and part of it was due to helping the interrogation team, Ozaki Koyo spoke on his behalf. Dazai-kun has indeed been very busy lately, and the only time he can arrange freely is his sleep time. We can't let Dazai-kun stay over at Komai-de-kun's home, right? Mori Ogai, it's not impossible. Ozaki Koyo. You're not right. Mori Ogai snapped back to reality, coughed lightly. That wouldn't be very convenient, of course, it's not possible. He had just been thinking about how to be more efficient and momentarily overlooked some common sense issues. In any case, just forget about testing during sleep time, it's pointless. Judging by this data, accidents during sleep are very rare. On the contrary, Komaeda Nagito, once he starts doing something, even just walking down the street normally, could be taken as a hostage by some robbers rushing in from the side. Dazai Osamu dragged out his voice. Boss, I feel like I need a vacation. Mori Ogai really wanted to say, what are you joking about? We're the mafia, where would a vacation come from? Even if we had a day off, it'd be useless if our enemies didn't have one too. Oh, we take a break, then those small organizations still holed up in their strongholds could take the chance to attack us while we're on break. At least, until the port mafia completely controls Yokohama, thinking about a regular vacation is unnecessary. Moreover, you still need a vacation. Before, when you didn't have a vacation, I didn't see you lacking rest. Mori Ogai retorted, just take the time you used to spend on suicide and use it for resting. Ozaki Koyo suddenly chimed in, actually, if you're talking about increasing free time, there's still a way. Mori Ogai, reminded by this, immediately realized, that's true. Dazai-kun, it's about time for you to be promoted to executive, isn't it? Last year's Dragon's Head conflict achievements were actually enough to make Dazai Osamu an executive, but because he was too young, they only spread rumors at first. The internal resources and power had already leaned in his favor, giving Dazai Osamu time to clear any disharmonious voices. That's how it was said, but in truth, no one had objections about Dazai Osamu becoming an executive for quite some time. It's unclear what Dazai Osamu was waiting for, as anyone else would have already gone to hint to Mori Ogai when the promotion would become official. Yet, Dazai Osamu didn't care and showed little interest in becoming an executive. However, for the current Dazai Osamu, the main advantage of the official transition is probably having more subordinates at his disposal. He can directly delegate a lot of tasks without needing to personally step in, and he can even give orders over the phone while playing outside, basically treating it as a kind of disguised vacation. Sure enough, this time when Mori Ogai brought it up again, Dazai Osamu didn't just brush it off. Instead, he readily agreed to it. Mori Ogai immediately felt his head go bald. Why is it such a hassle to get someone promoted? Right, Mori-san, Dazai Osamu suddenly said, do you know someone by the name of Natsume Soseki? Mori Ogai composed himself, I do, a writer. Why are you asking about him? Oh, I just got the feeling that Mori-san's attitude toward this person seemed a bit strange, so I wanted to ask if there's something special about him. Mori Ogai realized that Dazai Osamu had noticed his reaction when he heard the name while they were on the ship. No problem, this kind of situation calls for thanking Natsume-sensei's cloak. Thus, Mori Ogai, with an unchanged expression, said, I am a reader of his work, I really like Natsume-sensei's books. Dazai Osamu didn't say whether he believes it or not, he just smiled and responded, is that so? Well, he truly is a great author, even Mori-san likes him. Since this topic was brought up, Mori Ogai couldn't help but ask, so, did Komaeda-kun recommend Natsume-sensei's books to you? Which one did he recommend? This time, Dazai Osamu answered honestly, because he was also very curious about which original line Komaeda Nagito had referred to. He didn't mention which book, just roughly retold a segment of the quotes. After hearing Dazai Osamu's retelling, Mori Ogai began to feel suspicious. This idea does indeed sound a lot like Natsume-sensei, but Natsume-sensei's published works, he's read them all, and he has no impression of such a passage at all. Could it be an unpublished secret writing that hasn't been released yet? This could also explain why Komaeda Nagito did not directly say the book's name. But then the problem arises. How exactly did Komaeda Nagito come across the unpublished manuscript of Natsume-sensei? Mori Ogai's brain started spinning rapidly, connecting countless details together, coming to one conclusion. It's quite possible that Natsume-sensei also noticed something unusual about Komaeda Nagito, and moreover, had already interacted with him. If Natsume Soseki knew what Mori Ogai was thinking, he'd definitely want to grab his cane right now and knock him, teaching him, this is what they call, the clever are misled by their own cleverness. However, at this moment, it doesn't seem like Mori Ogai is overthinking. Right now, it just feels like things are getting a bit tricky to handle. If this is true, then Natsume-sensei might even have some kind of plan for Komaeda Nagito. But with Natsume-sensei being so elusive, even if he wanted to find him to ask, it wouldn't be possible. As someone who pursues the most optimal solution, Mori Ogai seriously considered it for a moment and felt that it would still be best to follow his original plan. If Natsume-sensei really had any objections, he could come and tell him himself, and then he would make adjustments. After all, it wouldn't hurt his plan at all, he can just get rid of Dazai-Osamu. Dazai-Osamu would also be happy, and wouldn't that benefit both sides? He really is a great boss. Thinking like that, Mori Ogai smiled and said to Dazai-Osamu, in that case, find an opportunity to confirm Komaeda-kun's ability, and submit it to the monthly report. Also, don't forget to include some thoughts on Natsume-sensei and other details. Mori Ogai had a decent understanding of Dazai-Osamu. At this point, Dazai had surely figured out from his reaction that Natsume Soseki was no ordinary author, so there was no point in hiding it anymore, it was better to be straightforward. Besides, he was curious whether Dazai-Osamu could find the elusive Natsume-sensei while being around Komaeda Nagito. Dazai-Osamu smiled faintly as he glanced at Mori Ogai, well when would I ever have the time to do all these things? This was actually him asking when he could become an executive. Mori Ogai felt both pleased and perplexed, the motivation to become an executive was just too strange. Next week. When Mori Ogai called Dazai-Osamu into his car to discuss the matter, Komaeda Nagito was also driven home by Dazai-Osamu's personal order, under Mori Ogai's tacit approval. The Port Mafia is an organization of this type, with both high levels of danger and secrecy. Especially when driving, they often receive phone calls and reveal some intelligence. It is absolutely impossible for the drivers to act as casually as taxi drivers, coming and going as they please, they are all part of the same family. These people are very tight-lipped, they know what can and cannot be said. Not only are they skilled drivers with strict discretion, but they are also highly adept at chase battles. Even when bullets graze past their ears, they can calmly continue driving. However, it's precisely because they know so well what they can and cannot talk about, the group of Port Mafia drivers are actually extremely well informed in certain aspects of intelligence. For instance, who is keeping a mistress, whose son is causing trouble and needs the father to clean up the mess, or whose child is applying to a university and needs connections. The intelligence team over there even often comes to the drivers to gather information. It's like last time when Komaeda Nagito went to the Port Mafia's headquarters, something happened in Dazai-Osamu's office. If a Port Mafia driver saw it, they would know that it was something unspeakable because it was a secret occurrence. The term secret, honestly, is quite ambiguous for those in this line of work. You could say it depends on how well someone can read between the lines. But today, doing it so openly in front of everyone as the driver takes Komaeda Nagito back to the house. Well, then there's no problem at all. Take Komaeda Nagito home and immediately return to Port Mafia's headquarters. In the driver's lounge, they started chatting. Do you all still remember the last time Dazai-sama suddenly had someone from headquarters send an ordinary person home? This matter, in fact, quietly spread throughout the entire Port Mafia. As soon as the driver mentioned it, someone immediately chimed in. Of course I remember, I was the one who did it back then. Why are you suddenly mentioning this? The driver lowered his voice and gossiped, today, Dazai-sama also had me take that person home. Originally smoking and chatting, the group of drivers instantly had their attention drawn over. That kid came again. Someone exclaimed, I thought last time was a special case. But isn't Dazai-sama supposed to be out discussing business with the boss this time? Why did a regular person suddenly appear? You've forgotten who they're doing business with this time, haven't you? Immediately, someone who understood appeared. After all, their boss had already returned. The intelligence on this could be considered as having the ban lifted. Tei Corporation, ah. Their president likes to plays to the point of, tisk tisk. The Tei Corporation's Yodo old man, although he himself wasn't involved in the underworld, he built his empire through loan sharking and financial wars. To say he had no ties to the underworld at all is impossible, especially considering the shady things he dabbled in. While the average person wasn't too aware, it became a frequent topic of conversation among many on the streets. That child actually boarded the Tei Corporation's ship, someone asked in surprise. Is he a guest or, what exactly? The driver who returned Komai de Nagito today shook his head and said, I'm not too sure. My job was just to take him home. But when he left the ship, he was standing with Dazai-sama, right behind the boss. Could it be that he's going to join us, the port mafia? What is that child's name? Dazai-sama and the boss both called him Komai de-kun. Komai de Nagito, not even realizing that after showing his face twice, he had been remembered by the port mafia gossip circles, returned home at dawn. After a quick wash, he immediately fell asleep, exhausted. The next day, he hurriedly continued searching for a place to stay. The hotel wasn't a great option, and besides, Japan doesn't allow minors to stay in hotels alone. Earlier, the landlord, eager to have him move out quickly, had used their own name to book a room, exploiting a loophole. The hotel wasn't suspicious at first, but since the landlord only showed up for a few days, Komaida was left to manage everything alone afterward. Without finding a suitable place to live, the hotel staff was probably starting to grow suspicious. However, it could be that he had overused his luck, and when it came to finding a place to stay, no matter how Komai de Nagito searched, things just didn't go smoothly. Fortunately, he could still afford the hotel fees, so for now, he just lived like that, waiting for the day when luck would shine on him again. Perhaps then this issue would be resolved. On Thursday, the opportunity finally arrived. Kudo Shinichi, beaming with joy, came to find Komai de Nagito. Senpai, I found a vacant apartment. Take a look and see if it's suitable for you. Komai de Nagito, looking pleasantly surprised, said, Kudo-kun. You have been helping him look for houses. Not only is he capable, but even his personality is excellent, practically shining brightly. He will definitely become a beacon of hope. Kudo Shinichi handed him a folded piece of paper. Here's the address. It's from my neighbor, Dr. Agasa's old fishing buddy. The room hasn't been listed on any major rental websites yet. Although the location is quite ideal, I heard the landlord might have some particular requirements. Anyway, don't worry about the hassle, senpai, just go take a look. If you mention my name, he'll know. Thank you, Kudo-kun. Komai de Nagito accepted the paper with a touched expression. I never thought such a small matter would always remain in Kudo-kun's heart. It truly makes me feel uneasy. Upon hearing that familiar tone, Kudo Shinichi didn't bother with any formalities and directly interrupted Komai de Nagito. It's no big deal, really. It was just a matter of paying more attention to relevant information while observing my surroundings in everyday situations. It also helped train my observational and intelligence gathering skills, so it didn't take much effort at all. Komai de Nagito praised, as expected of Kudo-kun, the future famous detective. No matter when or where, you never forget to hone your detective skills, truly a born detective. Kudo Shinichi didn't really think this was a big deal, but being praised like that, even as someone who likes standing out, would felt a bit embarrassed. Well, I just came to say that. I have other things to do, see you later. After saying that, even though Kudo Shinichi had clearly come to help his senior, he ran off in a hurry. Komai de Nagito reluctantly retracted the leftover words, then unfolded the paper and checked the address, aligning it with the map in his mind. It was a convenient location for school commute, much better than any of the places he had rented before. To have Kudo Shinichi confidently came to find him, it is proof that there were no apparent flaws. So, after school today, Komaeda Nagito went to check out this address, took a look at the house, and chatted with the landlord, an old man. He found out that the landlord was planning to visit his daughter abroad for 1 or 2 years, leaving the house feeling somewhat unsafe, worried about theft or surveillance and other concerns. If Komaeda Nagito doesn't mind, the landlord said he can use whatever he likes in the house. The landlord won't organize anything, he'll just put the valuable items in the master bedroom, locked it up, and the rest of the space is entirely Komaeda Nagito's. The landlord grandpa was quite honest and said that since they live abroad, there are many things they can't handle as promptly as a local landlord would. But to Komaeda Nagito, this basically isn't a problem, because if he really encountered something, the landlord probably couldn't handle it either, but as for him, he had personally encountered all sorts of accidents before and was very familiar with them. The two of them had such a pleasant conversation that the landlord even invited Komaeda Nagito to stay for dinner. As a result, when Komaeda Nagito returned to the hotel, it was a bit later than usual, and he happened to run into the neighbor leaving the room. And this neighbor of his turned out to be someone he knew. Komaeda-kun. Amuro Toru's expression showed a hint of surprise. How did you manage to stay at a hotel? Hotels don't usually rent rooms to minors. When he inquired earlier, he had clearly heard that the people next door were an uncle and his nephew. Komaeda Nagito, a bit embarrassed, said, "My landlord made me move out earlier, but I couldn't find another place to stay, so I had no choice but to temporarily stay at a hotel." Amuro Toru immediately furrowed his brow. What kind of landlord is that? This doesn't make sense. Halfway through speaking, Amuro Toru suddenly realized the reason why the landlord had Komaeda Nagito moved out. Because the special division wanted to closely monitor Ayatsuji Yukido, so naturally, as a neighbor, Komaeda Nagito had to move out and be replaced by someone from the special division. As a Japanese police officer, Amuro Toru wasn't in a position to comment on the internal operations of other government departments, so he awkwardly swallowed the rest of his words and instead asked, "Are you staying here for a few days? Haven't found a place to live yet?" "Today I went to check the apartment, everything's settled, in a few days I can move in." Komaeda Nagito clasped his hands in front of his chest, pleading, "Please, Amuro-san, don't tell the people at the hotel, okay? It's only for a few days." Amuro Toru, being someone well-versed in illegal operations, naturally didn't interfere with Komaeda Nagito's request, which could be understood emotionally. "Don't worry, I won't say anything." Komaeda Nagito raised a question, "But Amuro-san, why are you here? Didn't you say you don't like staying at hotels?" Amuro Toru casually replied, "For such a short time, the hotel is still more convenient." "Bourbon, who are you talking to?" Before Amuro Toru could properly close the door, another stranger came out. He had black hair and gentle cat-like eyes, his aura seemed relatively calm. Seeing that the person outside was a minor, he was momentarily taken aback. "Just getting to know a little friend." Amuro Toru put on a serious face, "All right, we need to head out, little friend, you should hurry back to your room too." The cat-eyed young man gave Komaeda Nagito a gentle smile. Komaeda Nagito's gaze swept over the bag on the back of the cat-eyed young man, thinking it resembled a bag for a guitar or a bass or some kind of musical instrument. Is he in a band? Amuro-san doesn't seem that free, whether it's folklore research or detective work, both are particularly time-consuming professions. Moreover, earlier, that person seemed to call Amuro-san bourbon. It sounded like the name of a liquor. Perhaps it belongs to the part he is hiding. Komaeda Nagito became more interested in Amuro Toru, but he wouldn't directly ask without considering the situation. He simply smiled, said, "Good night," and opened the door to his room and went inside. Amuro Toru and the young man with cat-like eyes both breathed a sigh of relief. Only after leaving the hotel did Amuro Toru say, "Scotch, it seems like he's starting to become suspicious." Although I really want to say that he's just a curious kid, you might be right, said the young man called Scotch with a sigh. His gaze lingered on my case for 5 seconds. There, aside from instruments, was also his sniper rifle. I don't think he would have noticed so much upon meeting him for the first time. Did you perhaps tell him too much beforehand? Amuro Toru smiled wryly, but I didn't say anything. That child is naturally very smart, and really bold too. A few days ago, he even took the initiative to board Tei Corporation's gambling ship. Sigh. As he spoke, Amuro Toru couldn't help but sigh. But he probably won't say anything, so we can rest easy for now. Scotch nodded, accepting Amuro Toru's judgment without any objections, and instead started discussing the current mission. Meanwhile, someone who was detected right away due to being too smart, Komaeda Nagito, found himself in a rather peculiar situation. He looked at the boy lying on his bed reading a book, feeling somewhat puzzled, and asked, Dazai-kun, why are you here? Chapter 33 End. Author's note. Komaeda-kun can be both salty and sweet, really, if he wanted to lower himself more. Acting all spoiled and cute is no joke. The quote about Natsume Soseki in the last chapter, I was recounting from memory at that time. Someone asked where it came from, so I went to look for it and discovered that I had read too much books and got a bit mixed up. Regarding the meaning of slave, it actually comes from Tarkovsky's diary. Life, of course, has no meaning. If it did, one would not be free, one would become a slave to that meaning, and one's life would be completely controlled by a new standard, the standard of slavery. Natsume, in later things, people do not abandon the world for a certain purpose. On the contrary, it is after birth that people develop certain purposes. If, from the beginning, an objective purpose is imposed on a person, it is like robbing them of their freedom after they are born. However, they all intend to convey the same idea, so everyone doesn't need to mind the details. Mainly, it's too much. I honestly don't remember what I've read, and finding it is quite troublesome, which led to this problem. After finding Natsume's original words, I even wondered if the meaning of slave was my own thought. But no matter how I think about it, it's impossible. After recalling for a long time, I suddenly thought of it upon waking up today and felt relieved. P.S. Scotch equals Morofushi Hiramitsu equals Amuro Toru, Furuyare, Bourbon, childhood friend, plus police academy classmates, equals undercover agent in the Tokyo Metropolitan Police Department Public Security Bureau.